Welcome into the Football Guys Fantasy Football Show. I'm Alfredo Brown, joined as always by my co-host Dave Kluge. Today, we're taking a look at some of our favorite players to pick in each round of fantasy drafts, and we're going to be using the Football Guys ADP tool. You can find this just by going to footballguys.com, clicking rankings. I'm doing it right now, Davis. I'm saying it. And you're able to click average draft position or ADP, and that'll pull everything up. And you'll be able to see this year, last year, you can see all kinds of different sources from CBS, ESPN, NFL.com, Sleeper. We're all over the place. So, Dave, without any further ado, let's start with round one here. That's picks 1 through 12. Give us one of your favorite players to draft in round one.
Obviously Christian McCaffrey, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, the guys sitting atop round one are the easy choices here, but I'm going to go with my man Amon-Ra St.Brown, my Football Guy's favorite from last year. This guy has just been money, like just improving every single year he's been in the league, gives you a sky-high floor, and now we're seeing him start to win deep, something he didn't do through his first 2 years in the league. We saw him mixing that into his bag of tricks last year, so right now, you're getting Amon-Ra St.Brown in the middle to back end of round one, and wouldn't surprise me one bit. And I truly mean this. It would not surprise me if Amon-Ra finishes the year as the overall wide receiver one. Tyreek Hill's getting up there in age. CeeDee Lamb missed all of camp. Ja'Marr Chase with a holdout. Justin Jefferson with a new quarterback. We've seen Amon-Ra St.Brown grow every year he's been in the league. Now he's with the same quarterback who has provided him one wide receiver one production over the last few years. He's a guy that you can get in the middle to back end of round one, but easily my favorite pick in the first round.
Well, you kind of stole my favorite pick of the first round, Amon-Ra St.Brown, because I think the value there is phenomenal.
We're going to overlap a lot
I
on
will
this show, and that's fine. And a peek behind the curtain for the viewers, we got no show sheet. We're just ripping this one and talking through it as we're doing it. So, yeah, we might overlap a little bit.
Yeah, just ripping through here, because I mean, you look at it, and obviously there's phenomenal upside with every single pick here in the first round. But Amon-Ra St.Brown is one of the few guys that you're going to get volume the same way you get from CeeDee Lamb, but you can get explosive plays the same way you do from like a Ja'Marr Chase, and you're likely getting him after all of those guys, and in many drafts after Justin Jefferson. So I just love the value you can get there. Amon-Ra St.Brown ends up being one of my favorite players, and you're getting him at pick 7, pick 8 oftentimes. So yeah, I love that one there.
I'm at the point
Let's
now
move
where
to
I'll take Amon-Ra ahead of Ja'Marr Chase with the looming potential holdout, the contract debates. I mean, right now, like if I'm drafting this weekend, I will not hesitate to take Amon-Ra ahead of Chase.
Let's go to the second round here, Dave. Picks 13 through 24. Who is your favorite pick here? Which is the name that stands out?
Nico Collins, right now his ADP on Football Guys website is 24th, which makes him a late second round pick. I've talked about him saying that he should be an early second round pick. So to me, when I'm start looking at everybody in round two, he's the one that stands out as the most mispriced player. Last year, he was third in the league in yards per route run. His peripheral metrics through his first 2 years in the league told us he was a good player, and just that he didn't have good quarterback play. And then CJ Stroud steps into the picture in Houston. All of a sudden, Nico Collins breaks out, is giving us dominant wide receiver one production. You're getting him at a discount now because Stephon Diggs is there, and people don't know what that is going to look like. But I am pretty certain that when you look at Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins is at worst, the wide receiver 1B, but I expect him to be the pretty clear-cut wide receiver one on this team.
My pick kind of feels like cheating because I'm going with the guy that's at the top of round two. I really like being able to get Jahmyr Gibbs in the second round when I can, because I think he has just as much upside as the running backs, Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson, that so many people are willing to take in the top 7 picks. And if I can get a guy that's similar to those and can give me nearly identical production in the second round, I'll do that. And I know you and I have talked about it. There's a lot of builds where we'd rather go with wide receiver over running back. And I do think that Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the rare players that he can be a Christian McCaffrey type. And I know that that's heavy words to throw out there, but his usage in the receiving game allows you to have, I don't want to say that flexibility, but it gives you a greater ceiling than you get from most of these running backs. I think better than you will get with a Jonathan Taylor or Saquon Barkley, the running backs that are going around him. So yeah, I love taking Jahmyr Gibbs in the second round whenever he falls to me.
Yeah, I like that pick as well.
All right, third round here. This is picks 25 through 36. I got to clear my throat. So, Dave, who's your favorite pick here in the third round? I think I know who it's going to be.
I don't even know who it's gonna be. This is the downside of doing a show with no prep because there's 3 guys I really like here. I think Travis Kelce's a good value, Cooper Kupp's a good value, and Jaylen Waddle's a good value. But I'll go with Cooper Kupp. Talked about him as my guy, my favorite. If he can rewind the clock and be the Cooper Kupp of old, you're getting enormous upside here. But of course, Jaylen Waddle is another primary target of mine. And I've said that in rounds 2 and 3, the guys that I am really heavily targeting here are Nico Collins, Jaylen Waddle, and Cooper Kupp. So I'll go with Cooper Kupp, but round 3 just has a ton of nice value there.
Yeah, there's a few different wide receivers that I really like here, and I just want to briefly mention Debo Samuel as a guy that I
Yeah.
think it's a phenomenal value that you can get him here in round three. But I'm going to go with my football guy's favorite player to draft, and that's Jaylen Waddle here in round three, where we've seen that we can get top seven production from him. We have a top tier NFL offense. We've got a player with a phenomenal draft pedigree with phenomenal talent. And to be able to draft him at wide receiver 18, Dave, you and I have him ranked ahead of that, well ahead of that. This is a player that we'd be comfortable taking in the second round. So to get him in the third round, I think is a very nice build if you're, let's say you're talking about like, having one of those top tier wide receivers in the first round, like a CD Lamb or a Jamar Chase or whoever. You're adding a Jahmyr Gibbs in the second round. You're adding a Jaylen Waddle in the third round. This is some really high level, dare I say, elite, take the top off talent that can give you those point spikes that you need week in and week out and that you really want from your top three round players. Let's go to round four, picks 37 through 48. Dave, who are you going with?
I really like Lamar Jackson here. He's a guy that we've talked about. The elite tier of quarterbacks is kind of flat, and I think that other people are going to pay up with Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes, and you could end up with Lamar Jackson potentially as the QB4 off the board. Now, there's other quarterbacks that I like later as well, but last year, if you look from week 10 onward, Todd Monken's offense started to kind of take shape a little bit in Baltimore, and Lamar Jackson was pacing for 4,200 passing yards and 925 rushing yards. And that is just an elite ceiling. We've never seen a quarterback in NFL history go for 4,000 and 1,000, and that is in Lamar Jackson's range of possibilities this year. So there are definitely other quarterbacks that I like later, and we'll probably talk about some of those guys. But this in round 4 is when I'll usually start looking at some of the onesie positions, quarterbacks and tight ends. Lamar Jackson's a guy I like, but I also don't mind taking Mark Andrews here. And if it lines up where one of those guys slides into round 5 and I can use my 4th and 5th round picks to stack Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, I'm feeling great about that.
Did you just say Lamarck Andrews? Because
Did
that's
I?
awesome. I don't know if you did, but I'm just going to pretend like you did. All right, my guy here in round 4 is going to be my favorite tight end to draft, who I talked about yesterday. And as much as I love seeing Ken Walker in this round, I am going to go with Trey McBride, who I envision as a guy that can easily be a tight end one this year for not a tight end one, excuse me, the tight end one for fantasy football. If you haven't, heard what I said about it, go back to the Football Guys Favorites episode that we did on Monday, where I break down and make the case for why I'm drafting Trey McBride and why his target share and his first downs per route run just really paint a picture of a guy who Marvin Harrison coming in should not ruin anything for him, and why Kyler Murray and Drew Petzing and this whole offense is going to continue to revolve around Trey McBride. He just needs that touchdown upside. So I love him there in round 4. Dave, we're moving along quick here. Let's go to round 5. And this is where I think the choices get a little bit tougher, I think, but I believe I know who you're going to pick here. Can I guess? Can I take a guess?
I bet you're right.
Is it George Kittle?
Of course, it's George Kittle. Yeah, I've talked about this guy all
Yeah.
offseason as being one of the best tight end values, kind of the last in the elite tier of tight ends, a guy who's seen his role grow as a pass catcher over the years while still maintaining elite high end efficiency. So these rounds, I typically skew towards zero running back, and no shock that my first 3 picks were wide receivers. And now here I am in rounds 4 and 5 looking at some wide receiver or some quarterbacks and some tight ends, because when you're doing a zero wide receiver build or zero running back build, I feel like this gets lost all the time among people who are new to this draft strategy. You want to have that positional advantage at quarterback and tight end. You're not just hammering wide receivers for the first 8 rounds. You want to make sure you're locking in an elite tight end and an elite quarterback. So when you start off wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver, then you want to mix in Lamar Jacksons and Anthony Richardsons and George Kittles and Mark Andrews. And this is when you do that in rounds 4 to 5. So regularly looking at George Kittle here, a guy who wouldn't surprise me one bit. Like I've said about a lot of the guys, if he finishes atop his position this year.
The guy I'm going to go with is Alvin Kamara, who
Love
we're
that pick
seeing
too.
his ADP go at running back 17. We talked about this, how he missed time last year and he was still able to finish as a top 5 running back on a points per game basis. And he was a top 10 running back in overall. For those of you, he missed games, still top 10. And by the way, let that be a lesson for anyone that's looking at Jonathan Brooks right now as well. The Saints they have a Derek Carr problem. They don't have any other weapons on this offense. They're not going to be able to do much else except for overload Chris Olave with targets and overload Alvin Kamara with targets. And that's what Derek Carr continues to do. I think we're going to see hopefully a slightly more creative offense, but Kendra Miller hasn't been able to practice. Jamal Williams is not a guy that's going to be used in the passing game. Alvin Kamara remains, if not the top, one of the top weapons for the New Orleans Saints. Dave, let's go to our next round here, round 6. Who are you going with?
Now, this is where best ball has just like rotted my brain out because I'm seeing DJ Moore here at pick 63 available in this round, which is crazy to me because I've been regularly all offseason paying up for DJ Moore with third round picks and not even thinking twice about it. Like it feels like a good pick in round 3. So if you're able to get DJ Moore in round 6, oh my goodness. I mean, this is a guy who went for almost 1,400 yards last year with Justin Fields and Tyson Bagent. And now he has a much better quarterback that we expect to pass for more yards than the Bears passed for last year. We know DJ Moore's a talented player. Like during his time in Carolina, the peripheral metrics told us he was elite. It was bad quarterback play. Last year, he still had bad quarterback play, but it was better than what he had in Carolina. And he explodes for almost 1,400 yards. So, yeah, Keenan Allen's there now and Roma Dunze is there now, but DJ Moore is still the clear-cut wide receiver 1 in Chicago, and, if you're getting any sort of discount on him because of the concerns about the added target competition, I mean, yeah, take DJ Moore as your wide receiver 4 and don't think twice about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's nuts that you could have a team with a Field and DJ Moore at wide receiver 4. I'm gonna go ahead and make my pick here. I'm surprised he wasn't your guy, but I guess, the DJ Moore thing makes sense. Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
This is
I already went
both
with
of our
Lamar
both.
Jackson. I know, I know, I know. I already said Lamar
Yeah,
Jackson. I
that's
didn't want to
fair.
just hammer
That's fair.
quarterbacks.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, don't hammer the quarterbacks. But Kyler Murray, he's being drafted at quarterback 8. You and I both have him at quarterback 5. Once again, if you have not watched it or listened to it yet, go back and check out our Football Guys Favorites episode where Kyler Murray was both of our favorite quarterback to draft. And this is a guy who's got top 3 upside year in and year out because of the rushing ability. Now he's got the weapons around him. He's going to be in his second year in this offense. He's going to be a guy that's finally healthy after the ACL. I am very excited about Kyler Murray. I think he's more of a sure bet than some of the other quarterbacks that we're seeing in the area, or even quarterbacks like Anthony Richardson that are going ahead of him. So I love being able to take Kyler Murray at quarterback 8 there in the 6th round. Dave, let's go to round 7. Who are you looking at here?
Diontae Johnson for me is the easy choice here. And, I'm still leaning towards wide receivers. And there are some running backs that I like in this round, but, I like to start wide receiver heavy and getting Diontae Johnson here in this round. Feels like there's a pretty big fall off after him. And there are still some late round guys that I'll target here and there. But, it feels like once you get past Diontae Johnson and you start looking at a lot of upside rookies or boring veterans where Diontae has a chance to finish top 20 at the position easily. Like he is the unquestioned wide receiver 1 in Carolina. We've talked so much about how we expect Dave Canales to make this offense a little bit better, the improvements they've made at wide receiver and offensive line. Bryce Young has already looked a little bit better in the preseason. Diontae Johnson has just been a target hog every step of his career. And now he's on a team with very little target competition. And it's just so easy to imagine a world where Diontae Johnson pulls 150 plus targets this year. And if you're getting him in round 7, that just feels like a massive misprice.
I'm taking the easy way out and I'm going with you and grabbing Diontae Johnson in this round. 'Cause, I mean, you look around and I think this is a decent spot to start to look at some of those quarterbacks like Dak Prescott and Jordan Love. Ideally, I would have taken someone a little bit ahead of that. So if I did miss out on any of the quarterbacks earlier, I'm happy to take Jordan Love or Dak Prescott here because these are guys that do have top 5 upside. But for me, it is Diontae Johnson because I think that is an ideal wide receiver. I mean, Dave, he's being drafted as a wide receiver 4.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And this is a guy that we think could very easily finish in the top 24 wide receivers. So to get him there, I love that one. Let's move on to our next round here. What round is this now? We just did round
This is round
we did round
this is round 8.
this is round 7. This is round 8? Sure,
Maybe.
whichever. I'm sure there'll be a graphic on the screen that'll let you know. All right, here we go. Our next players for this round, Dave, who are you going with?
Jonathan Brooks, easily.
Uh,
ADP of 92. Started the off or started on Pup, and people are freaking out about it. We did our show on Monday that we released, and Jonathan Brooks was my guy, and all the comments right now are just like, "Do you know he's on Pup? Do you know Jonathan Brooks is hurt? Like Jonathan Brooks is injured. How can you do this? He's coming off an ACL tear. We know this. Like you're drafting Jonathan Brooks solely for the second half of the season. If you got an IR spot, great. If you don't, stash him at the end of your bench." Anything I've said this all off season. Any production you get from Jonathan Brooks in the first half of the season is just a cherry on top. That's not what you're drafting him for. We talked about this so much, like when we compared him to Gus Edwards or somebody like that are going in similar ranges. I don't want a guy that's giving me 8 to 10 points per game for the entire season. I want a guy who's going to give me 20 points per game, even if it's only for half of the season. And that's the upside with Jonathan Brooks. So easy pick here. I'm usually reaching for Jonathan Brooks around early just to make sure I get him on my team.
this is where I love to take my football guy's favorite sleeper, Javonte Williams, running back for the Denver Broncos. He's going as the running back 28. You already know I've got him as my running back 22. And the running backs in this area, they just I don't know. Like, do I want to go with Jaylen Warren? No. Jonathan Brooks, fantastic. I'm not going with Zach Moss. I'm not looking at Austin Eckler. I'm not taking a second look at a lot of these guys. But Javonte Williams is a guy that, once again, talked about it on that episode on Monday, gives you the top 15 upside. He was already getting the usage that we like to see out of these running backs at you know at a rate that you would not expect for a guy that is coming off such a major knee injury. Now the Broncos are, at least at the time of this recording, are looking to move on from Samaje Perine. By the time this releases, he could be off the team, which could be big for Javonte Williams. And we've already talked about how Bo Nix and Sean Payton, they are big at getting the ball to their running backs in the passing game. That's where Javonte Williams can really shine in fantasy. So I love him here in this round. Dave, I've totally lost track of what round this is. I don't know where we are. I'm bad at math.
We are in round
Someone should have done
eight.
this for me.
We are in round 8, picks 97 through 108.
Thank you.
I got you.
I'm not good at
I got
numbers.
you.
And people trust me with fantasy football. All right, let's go to round 8.
We interrupt this regularly scheduled programming to inform you that Dave and Alfredo do not know how to do math and lost count of the rounds. Please ignore them and refer to the round on the screen. Thank you so much for watching the Football Guys Fantasy Football Show.
Dave, who are you taking here?
Oh, this is when I start shredding running backs. And there are so many that I like here and that I can talk about. I love Brian Robinson. I love Tajay Spears. But Chase Brown is the guy that I'm going to talk about here. We talked about him a lot this offseason, on a breakaway run rate, third in the league behind only Devon Achane and Keaton Mitchell last year. Reports about Zach Moss are that he hasn't looked exceptional. Meanwhile, Chase Brown is tearing up Cincinnati camp. We've got offensive linemen in Cincinnati saying that they draft him first overall, which I don't recommend doing. But in round 9, if you could draft him as your RB2, RB3, maybe a flex play, something like that, Chase Brown has such a high ceiling. That's what you're looking for at this point in the draft is ceiling, and Chase Brown has a very tall one.
Yeah, that probably would have been mine. I think I'll talk about the guy that I talked about on yesterday's show, which is going to be Brian Thomas Jr., because there is such a great upside for him to actually be the wide receiver 1 in that Jacksonville offense, Dave. So if you haven't seen that yet, go back and check that out. But I mean, anyone that can be the wide receiver 1 for an improving Jaguars offense and improving Trevor Lawrence, I want that. I want the big playability. Let's go to our next picks. Dave, who are you taking in the 9th round, right? Yeah. Okay. Cool.
9th round. And man, I'm looking at the players available here. Marquise Brown, Ezekiel Elliott, Romeo Dobbs, Khalil Shakir, Blake Corum. These are like all guys that I have been touting this season. I don't know what it is about this round that I just love all of these guys available here, but got to keep it on brand with Marquise Brown. He's been my most drafted player of the offseason. I don't want to talk about him too much because we just talked about it on yesterday's show as one of my favorite late round sleepers, but sky high ceiling in this Kansas City Chiefs offense. He's a guy who can win inside and outside, deep and short, make plays after the catch, contested catches. They're going to use him very creatively, similarly to how they used Tyreek Hill in years past. And as you can tell, I'm not afraid to take the injury discount. Marquise Brown probably not playing week 1. Jonathan Brooks already on PUP, but I will gladly take the injury discounts on these guys, especially once you get into the mid and late rounds.
Let's go with Khalil Shakir,
Yep.
the Buffalo
It was
Bills
tough for
wide
me
receiver
not to
one.
talk about Khalil Shakir.
It's hard for me not to talk about Kluge
Yeah.
Shakir. Yeah, he's going as the wide receiver 52. You and I have him way ahead of that. This is the Bills wide receiver one for all intents and purposes. Now, what does that mean for fantasy football? I don't think we even need to get into all the nuance about it, because how many teams with good quarterbacks and good offenses can you go and select their top wide receiver or their top target earner this late in drafts? It's
Usually really
utterly
crappy
insane.
offenses. Like, you can draft, like, the Patriots wide
Yes.
receiver one here, but, like, you shouldn't be able to draft the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen's wide receiver one here.
Absolutely nuts, and we both view Khalil Shakir as sort of a Diontae Johnson light, but I think there's going to be some run after catch ability. We already talked about how good he is with that and how valued that is in the Buffalo Bills offense. So that's who I'm going with in this round.
Round 10.
Dave, yep, round 10. Thank you. Can you just keep doing
I
that
got
for
you.
me
I got
so
you.
that I can
Yeah.
keep? All right, round 10 here. Who are you going with?
Zach Charbonnet, a guy who has very little projectable volume early in the season, and maybe there's a world where the tides change a little bit and he starts getting more work. I don't expect that to happen, but this is just an elite handcuff. Kenneth Walker is probably going to be the guy in Seattle, but you draft Zach Charbonnet, keep him stashed on your bench, and if Kenneth Walker misses any time, you're looking at an RB1 for the rest of the season here. Zach Charbonnet is a wildly talented guy, drafted in the second round last year. Didn't get a whole lot of run in his rookie season, and the handful of games that he did have to play, tough matchups against Dallas, San Francisco, and the Rams. But just a talented player that I'm going back to the well on, kind of as simple as that. I like the talent. I like the offense, and this is where you're swinging for upside. If something happens to Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet has a ton of upside.
Yeah. How dare you say if something happens to Kenneth Walker? Nothing's going to happen to Kenneth Walker, folks. I'll go with a guy that something's already happened to, and it's unfortunate to know this, but TJ Hawkinson injured. This is a guy that if your league has an IR spot, and most leagues should have 1 to 2 IR spots, okay? Let's just normalize that. Let's make that a thing. But as we go here into round 10, yeah, TJ Hawkinson is one of the few players that has top 5 positional upside,
Yeah.
top 3 positional upside.
hmm
And you're not going to get that in the full season. I think that's just part of the expectation you have to have. But you can get that type of upside on a per game basis. Even with Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs last year at quarterback, TJ Hawkinson was still crushing it in terms of targets and in terms of fantasy points. This is a guy that it's honestly, Dave, you get to these rounds, and we've talked about it, that excuse me, and you've converted me. Being able to pair TJ Hawkinson with a Taysom Hill as your late round tight end strategy. Sorry if I'm giving away spoilers for some of our final rounds here, but
Are we going to round
I
20?
think
Because I think that's where Taysom Hill's ADP is.
if you're not getting one of those top 7 tight ends, this is honestly where I like to go and just do the TJ Hawkinson Taysom Hill thing. Let's go to our next round. All right, Dave, this is round what?
11.
You're supposed to help me. Thank
Round
you.
11.
Round 11.
Picks
Here we
133 through
go.
picks 144.
Thank you. Learn your job. All right. 133 to 144, round 11. Go for it. Who are you
I
taking?
know just yesterday you talked about him as one of your favorite late round sleepers, but Ty Chandler is easily my favorite pick in this round. A guy with
Yep.
immense upside, my most drafted player last year, huge fan of the talent, blazing speed. And again, he's a handcuff, not a ton of projectable volume. I think Aaron Jones is probably going to be the guy to start the year, but he has missed games in 3 of the last 4 seasons. He's getting up there in age, knee issues, hamstring issues. If Ty Chandler's opportunity comes, he's going to do well with it, just like he did last year. It's kind of funny. We're just talking about like our favorite picks in each round. That's kind of what we've been doing on this show. But I have just built a zero running back monster. Started off wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver, got my quarterback, got my tight end, got another 2 wide receivers, and then just hammering these upside running backs here. If a draft actually fell this way, I'd be pretty happy with it. I know we're just picking our favorite players, but kind of funny that I stumbled into a nice little team construction here.
Yeah, you'd almost think that you know a little something here about fantasy
You'd
football.
almost think that I did 300 plus drafts this offseason.
Almost. Get a life, nerd. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going here with Ty Chandler. That's the guy that I talked about yesterday, and that's where I would want to go in this round. I think you do get a little bit of like early season upside with a Chuba Hubbard. If maybe you missed out on having a starting running back and you went a little more zero RB there, think Rico Dowdle also can give you some upside as well. But I don't know if there's anyone that has sort of that league winning upside towards the end of your year, aside from Ty Chandler and Tyler Algier is another
Yeah.
guy that I'll mention there as well. That he will have value regardless of what's going on with Bijan Robinson. But Ty Chandler and Tyler Algier are going to be those guys for me. All right, Dave, go do your thing. Say the round and the picks.
We are in round 12, picks 145 through 156. I hope I'm right here. Like I'm just, I'm riffing. I'm sure somebody will comment if I'm wrong. I don't have my calculator up, just doing all this off the top of my head, but I think that's where we're at.
Yeah. All right. So round 12, this is going to be our last round here. Who are you going with at this spot? And you know what? We can just open this up to anyone beyond those picks. So round 40 or pick 145 and down. Who are you going with at this spot?
Man, I mean, just in round 12, there's a lot of players I like. Jaleel McLaughlin has been a favorite target of mine. I love Josh Downs. I've talked often about how good his rookie season was and how under the radar it kind of flew. Darnell Mooney, is probably going to be the third option in the passing game on a good, what we expect to be good Atlanta Falcons offense. But got to go with my sweet baby boy, Jaylen right here. I've talked about him so much this offseason. Can't get enough of him. I expect there to actually be some week one volume with Jaylen Wright, as Mike McDaniel's made it clear that they're going to have some sort of rotation in that backfield in Miami. But if something happens to Devon Achane or Raheem Mostert, then we're looking at a sky-high ceiling for him. So this is one of those situations where you could get usable weeks early from this running back. But the best case scenario, if somebody gets injured, then he's thrust into a bigger role. His speed in this Miami offense is going to be a nightmare for defenses. So Jaylen Wright is a guy that I am okay paying up early for, even if his ADP is in round 12. I'm looking his way as early as round 10.
Yeah, I mean that was a guy that you just talked about yesterday, and I love the upside there for him. And like I said, he's a sort of, we call him double handcuff. If something happens to Achane, something happens to Mostert, he's getting a big role in that Dolphins offense. And we've had this theme here. We just keep repeating names of players, and by God,
Ready for football to start, man. I can't keep
yep,
doing the offseason talk. I'm over it. I need football.
because here we go. Because I'm about to repeat another player. It's Ray Davis.
Yeah.
Running back for the Buffalo Bills, and he's not until the next round, but I'm going to take him around early because I want to get Ray Davis on my team. Once again, another running back with phenomenal contingent upside, but he will have a weekly role. This is a guy who's going to be used around the goal line. He's going to be used in the passing game. James Cook has been great in a limited role. He needs a smaller role, similar to what we saw with Tony Pollard back in his days in Dallas with he and Ezekiel Elliott, where he could be efficient, he can make those plays. But Ray Davis, he's going to be involved early. If something were to happen, he becomes one of those guys I think we talked about with Blake Corum and some of these other players. He becomes a top 12 running back, Dave,
Yep.
I think, or maybe top 15. Let's not get crazy, but when you have one running back that's catching passes and getting goal line work and a good offense, yeah, I want them. Yep. And I'm willing to draft them around early.
That was a good show.
Well,
kept it nice
and
tight.
That's it for us.
Less than 30 minutes.
Tight. Super tight. We went 12 rounds here. Dave, we're going to be back again next week as we get into week 1 of NFL action. We are so excited for the season to finally be here. We keep just repeating names over and over and over. But Dave, we've made it. Week 1 is going to be here. I want to wish everybody good luck with their fantasy drafts. If you've been following along with us and we've been able to help you in just the smallest way, please, we ask that you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you leave a review on the audio version of the podcast on Apple or Spotify. And just honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, we want to thank you guys for just joining us for each and every one of these episodes. It means the absolute world to us.
Let's go have a year. Football kicks off in a week. Can you believe it, Alfredo? Whew. Whew. I got chills. Chills.
Real chills. Touch them. All right. Well, this has been a good one for myself, for Dave Kluge. We'll see you guys next time. Adios.